Hi, today we're going to be starting our literary analysis unit where you're going to be writing a literary essay analyzing two books that you've read. So we're going to talk about structure one. In the past unit, we spent time analyzing books we know well. You will see those ideas for your work today as we begin to write thesis statements that set up a clear literary essay structure. Students, today I want to show you how I am going to start to think about and set up a possible structure for a literary essay. I will show you how I had to tug at a thesis statement a bit to make it work with the evidence I already had in mind. I'm going to model using the Hunger Games. I first thought about a character interpretation using Katniss. It was clear that Katniss often did what she thought was right, regardless of whether or not the Capitol would approve. I jotted down that idea as a possible thesis statement, and then started to think about the supporting evidence from the text. I thought about Katniss taking Prim's place in the reaping, and then the time she placed the flowers around Rue as a proper burial. I also thought about the time at the end of the book when she is about to eat the berries. So here's one possible structure. First, I would have my intro and then my thesis statement. Then I would have a body, which would make up 3 paragraphs, support from one place in the text, another in a third place. And then I would have my conclusion paragraph, which would talk about reflection, insight, and realization. So first, here's an example about character. If I took a character, I would think about character interpretation across the text. So a possible thesis I could use in my intro would be Katniss, the heroine in the Hunger Games, values doing what's right more than her own well-being. Make sure that you mention the name of the book in your thesis. So then my body paragraphs, the first one would be about when she steps in for her sister in the lottery, or the reaping. The second body paragraph would be about when she puts the flowers around Rue, clearly define the Capitol to show her allegiance to Rue. And the third would be when she's willing to eat the berries to literally put an end to her own life to stop the games so that there's no winner. We'll discuss doing conclusions later. At this time, you need to worry about coming up with a thesis for your introduction and 3 pieces of evidence to develop paragraphs around. So now it's your turn to try this work. Take out your writer's notebook, or you could start drafting in a Google Doc. If you're going to start your drafting in the Google Doc, it's important that at whatever point you start a Google Doc, you keep that same one throughout the whole unit. So this one would be labeled literary essay, and then that would be the name of the file. And at the top of the page, you would write structure 1 character. You'll begin by crafting a thesis statement or coming up with a possible idea for your thesis. This should be about a character for this first one. Then you will figure out what the supports will be. This is the evidence from your book that you're going to use to support your thesis statement, and develop your own bulleted outline. You can rework your thesis later if you need to. So pause now, and I want you to try and jot out an outline talking about the character in your book. Okay, welcome back. Second example that we're going to talk about today is using the same structure but with theme. I could also use this structure to write about a big idea or a theme. Again, thinking about the Hunger Games, the theme of self-sacrifice came to mind, and I thought of examples from the book that supported the idea of self-sacrifice. I knew I would eventually develop a thesis around the idea of self-sacrifice, but I wasn't quite sure how I was going to word the thesis. Rather than worrying about the thesis, because I already had the idea, I started to come up with the evidence and thought about the different characters and how they all demonstrated actions that put others' well-being ahead of their own needs or wishes. So in this example, it's still structure 1, but this time it's about theme. So I'm thinking of theme with examples across the text. So I could say something like, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins teaches readers that self-sacrifice has the power to right wrongs in the world. Remember, theme teaches a lesson. So in this case, they used the author's name and said that the author taught the readers and then what their theme was. So the first body paragraph would discuss how Katniss teaches readers that self-sacrifice can right wrongs. The second one would be about how Peeta teaches us that self-sacrifice can right wrongs. And the third would be about Gale, and how he teaches us that sacrifice can right wrongs. So now it's your turn to try this work. Either take out your writer's workbook and continue in there, or go back to your document that's in Google Docs, and this time label it Structure 1, Theme. You will begin by crafting a thesis or coming up with a possible idea for your thesis. This should be about a theme. Then you will figure out what the supports will be and develop your own bulleted outline. You can rework your thesis later if needed. If you finish one idea, try to come up with another thesis and evidence to support that thesis, because we know there's more than one theme in this book. So I want you to pause now, and I want you to come up with a thesis based on your theme and 3 pieces of evidence that you could develop a paragraph around. Okay, now that you have 2 outlines, you need to start writing a draft for each of them. So that is your work for tonight, for the rest of this class and for tonight. You need to come in with a quick draft for both character and theme. If you're still struggling on thesis, you can go to this right here is a good place to look for possibly how you want to write a thesis. All right, off you go to do good work.